the perspective that we have to keep when we look at experiences is that creating one is great, and it may get us an award, like a marketing award or whatnot, but it's not necessarily going to help us always scale the business.
A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. My name is Ethan Butte. I head up the Customer Experience series here on the show. This week's guest is CMO, president, and co-founder of Uberflip. His name is Randy Frisch, and he believes that it's not about content creation or even content marketing. It's all about content experience. When you think about the customer experience, content plays a large role in it, and he provides many great ideas and insights on how to do that more effectively in 2019 and beyond. In addition, he was the chief operating officer prior to that, so he provides unique insight into how to create a more holistic customer experience across the various teams that touch it, including marketing, sales, customer success, and beyond. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Welcome to the Customer Experience Podcast, Randy Frisch of Uberflip.
Thanks so much, Ethan. I'm excited to chat with you and love what you guys are doing at BombBomb. So this will be fun. We probably will be speaking the same language.
For sure. That's the fun thing about being able to host these conversations is carving some time out of the day to catch up. I always like to start with this question. Can you define, because the definitions are many, and I'm trying to work toward over the course of the next 100 conversations, some semblance of a clear picture that's informed by some of the best people working and operating in growing businesses today. Can you define customer experience? What does that mean to you? What are some of its characteristics?
It's a great question, Ethan. The problem with terms like that is you get 100 people in a room and you'll get 100 different definitions. And the book I wrote, which kind of pokes a bit at another term, which is content marketing, which we'll get to, has the same problem, right? What role are you in and what do you care about? And I know for your podcast, you have a wide audience of people who listen to this, from marketers to sales leaders to success leaders. And I think the definition of customer experience is different to all of them. And that's part of the problem, right? Because all of us have to unite around this common understanding of what a customer experience is. Now, no different than the space that I'm in, which is content experience, which in many ways has tiebacks to content experience. I often, really explain content experience in a simple way, which I think we can pull over here. With content experience, it's as simple as anytime your audience encounters content, what is that feel like for them? What does it look like from an environment perspective? How have we structured those steps that people go through? And how do we ultimately engage them? So I think about it in those three ways: environment, structure, and engagement. And I think that a lot of us can view customer experience in the same way. It's going a little bit beyond content, if you will, although content often exists at many of these customer experience touch points. But think about the environment that we put people into, think about the way we structure the steps that they're going to take, and think about the ways that we engage them to continue that journey, if you will. And, so we can tie this to so many different areas, software and retail experiences where, as customers, we just think about that journey that we go through.
That's great. I love it. And I want to go one step deeper there, but you were right at one of the quotes that motivated me to go in this direction as I was thinking about, if I can get the time of smart people like you and talk about things, what do I want to talk about? And it was one of the quotes that motivated me in this direction was Seth Godin's, if it's noticed, it's marketing, which, in a way is just talking about customer experience because as a marketer, he says that, and therefore everything is marketing and all people are marketers. And you did a nice job there of saying, content is a microcosm of the experience overall. And the way you and your team think about content experience, you can also think about customer experience in the same context. So let's get really specific there. What is content's role? So when you step back and you are looking holistically at the entire customer experience, how do you describe content's role in there? What are some of the best roles that it can play or the most important roles it can play in a broader holistic view of customer experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's something that I don't think we actually think enough about. I think when you think about content, most of us, our first thought goes to the people on our team who are content marketers, right? And we associate that content is simply creating content. So as long as we are creating content, we are doing content marketing, or we are in the content marketing game, or we're all in on content. That's kind of only the first step, right? It would be like saying, I'm going to go, build a fort for my kids, and I'm going to go get all this wood. Now I'm done. Right? Or I built the fort, I'm done. Well, no, I have to create some sort of interactive experience with that fort so my kids care, right? So they want to get involved in that. And I think that's the part that a lot of us, kind of take a step back. I'll pull this back to your area of expertise, which is customer experience. I can't tell you how often I hear this with content experience, and I'm going to bet you'll tell me it's the same. People will say something like, you know what, that whole customer experience thing, that's something we're really going to, take a look at next year, right? Or that's like a Q4 thing for us. We're really going to go deep on customer experience or content experience in Q4. And I laugh at that because it's that person thinking like, oh, it's not something I have to deal with until I decide to deal with it. I'm going to deal with other things. What we ignore is that anytime, as I said earlier, that someone encounters your content, or in your case, encounters the brand in many other ways, they have an experience. So it's more of a question of, is the experience we're putting forward winning or losing deals for us? And that's when you start to say, holy shit, am I losing deals because I'm ignoring this, or who's owning it? And that's really what led me to the book that I wrote that comes out, on March 6th of 19, is this idea that we're so wrapped up on the idea of creating content that we don't think about mapping that content to a buyer journey. We don't think about, the way we put that content to be everything from the basics of mobile friendly, which I still can't believe we're talking about 10 plus years later.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's like still some people are like, oh shit, yeah, how is that going to look on mobile? But it goes way beyond that. It goes into now things such as, how do we recommend other content, right? How do we deliver experiences in the same way that brands like Spotify and Netflix have won us over through, putting us in this immersive experience where we click on one piece to the next.
Yeah, so you've already kind of walked around it a little bit. I just want to give people the opportunity to understand this content experience framework that you've built. And I believe you probably unpack. I've only read the introductory chapter to the book, and I am looking forward to its release here really soon. But this environment, structure, discoverability, and engagement, I believe, are probably fundamental to the framework. Can you speak a little bit very specifically to this content experience framework?
Yeah, for sure. The first question is, why do we even need a framework, right? We have so many frameworks thrown at us. My favorite ones still go back to university. I still love SWOT, right? SWOT is amazing. Who doesn't use SWOT on a daily basis? We should always, be evaluating things in that way. But, the reality is, and Ethan, I get to do a lot of kind of roundtable discussions sometimes with marketers. And, one of those questions we all love in a roundtable is, tell me that campaign that you're really proud of. Right. And everyone goes around and they talk about this awesome thing that they did in marketing and how well it connected. And every once in a while, I'll challenge someone to say okay, how did you scale that? And then they look at me and they're like, I don't know, you just asked for one really good use case. We didn't scale that, but it worked really well that one time. Right. And I think that's just one of those funny anecdotes. of this thing that, we have to keep the perspective that we have to keep when we look at experiences is that creating one is great, and it may get us an award, like a marketing award or whatnot, but it's not necessarily going to help us always scale the business. And that's where, the expectation today of our audiences is that we will deliver personalized experience, we'll deliver compelling experiences at every stage of the buyer journey, right? This ties perfectly back to that overall customer experience yet again. So to do that, how are we going to go take that on? And that's why we need a framework like the content experience framework. What it does is, and to clarify, it has nothing to do with creating content, right? Like if you're looking for a content marketing creation framework, do not read this book, right? This is not a book for content marketers. It's not going to outline like the key to creating like the ultimate blog post.
So I've only read the opening chapter, but I would say before you create a piece of content, read this book. After you read the book, then you can go get, the 18 best tips on how to make a blog post, how to make an interactive web page that answers the top 3 questions. I think this one probably goes first the way you're describing it.
Oh, I agree with that. In fact, I believe you mentioned you have a great guest coming up who will tell you how to create great content on your podcast, which is Ann Hanley, right? Like Ann's fantastic. She'll tell you how to write that great content. But this will help you think about how we're going to map that content in all the different instances. The problem is a lot of us get overwhelmed at scale, right? So what this framework does is it takes you through 5 steps. And the book, or I should say the second part of the book, is fully focused on the framework through a combination of stories and actual marketing examples. But some of the stories are just fun and funny. I'll take credit for that. Hopefully you think I'm funny after you read it. My wife, not always. She's got a good sense of humor though. But, the first step of the framework that we go through is, the idea of centralizing your content, right? It's so important for us to actually have a home for our content that we can direct people to. I'll give you a quick story that's not even in the book because this one just happened this past week. There is a company who's trying to sell to me right now. Right, software company. I'm not gonna embarrass by saying the company name,
or not even what it rhymes with.
But the irony here, you're gonna love this, and people may piece it together. Their tagline is "Own the experience." Right, so let's not embarrass them beyond that. But I've got one of their reps who's emailing me. I'm on their regular cadence every other week, and the emails, they're pretty good actually, taking the time to personalize. Makes sense. He talks about my company. He talks about what they could do. But then he always links out to a piece of content, right? And the funny thing I always look at is he's got me controlled there. I'm in an email between me and him. There's no other distractions. He sends me to watch this video each time. It's a different video every time, but it's on YouTube, right? And the problem there is, this is where it comes back to centralizing. He can't own that experience there. YouTube's going to recommend a whole bunch of other content to me at that point. Right?
If he's got the video titled properly, it's going to be probably a lot of competing ideas, if not competing companies, that I'm going to be served up after I watch his or her video.
Exactly. So the video itself is fantastic. It's a great video, but glaring at me in the bottom corner is this video about Warren Buffett's 10 keys to success in 2019. And I'm like, man, I want to be rich like Warren Buffett, right? Like that's what I care about next, not how to go own the experience anymore. So this is, just an anecdote to help you understand this idea of centralizing content, right? We move on from centralizing to organizing. Not the sexiest part, I will admit. Some of the stories are great in the book, but the idea there is the tagging, the auditing that we have to do of our content to be able to move on to the next step. That next step is all about personalizing content. Right. And that's the fun part. That's the part that, we talked about at the roundtable. We love to talk about these examples, but it's the ability to do so at scale because you've invested time and effort in those first 2 steps, which is centralizing and organizing. That's what sets you up to be able to scale. Once you've personalized, once you've built out these experiences, there's so many great ones that we go through that are marketing strategies. This kind of comes to your earlier question, Ethan, on like the different ways that content can be used. It gets used in ABM. It gets used in inbound. It gets used in demand gen. It gets used in sales enablement, right? We just think of those terms and we don't think content first, but try and execute any of those strategies without content, right? It's
Right.
core to every campaign. So once we've personalized for all those different ways that we're going to market, then we move on to step 4, which is distribution. And that's how we're going to get the content into the hands. But I don't want to take anything away. That's easy at that point, right? Right now, it's often cumbersome. It's hard, right? If it's our marketing team and we're doing an email inside of a marketing automation platform, then we'll go, we'll jump in there and, we're struggling to figure out what content to link to, right? Or we take this approach that I'll get you to consume 7 pieces of content, which IDG says is the average number that we need you to consume through 7 emails, versus thinking, how do I send you to 1 email where you'll consume 7 pieces at the same time, right? I mean, that's a big jump in productivity and outcome. And back to this whole idea we're talking about, that's a better experience, right? That's the experience that you and I expect on Spotify that gets us to listen to these days 112 artists a month versus 68 artists a month 3 years ago. Spotify did that just by introducing the idea of recommendations.
Yep. Yeah, I love that too, the adjacency. And it's one of the reasons we're so serious about implementing your software is instead of wondering what Warren Buffett's got for me, I'm wondering, oh gosh, they solved this problem too. Oh, I can watch a video on this. Oh, I can check out a PDF about that in this controlled environment you're talking about. Did I miss number 5? I got centralized, organized, personalized, distribution, and
generating results, right? I mean, that's what we're all in this for. And as much as it's a framework to this point that kind of goes step by step, the generating of results happens as you do those first 4 steps. So it's not like all of a sudden, like, okay, now we have to make sure this works. That's not how marketing works. We have to be doing the things along these stages to make sure that we can, first of all, track, we can analyze, but we can also convert people. Right? I mean, this is, we're talking about a marketing funnel. We're talking about different stages that content is supporting, right? We talked about inbound. We talked about ABM there. We talked about sales enablement. Those are happening, I mean, depending on how you look at your funnel, at anywhere from a lead MQL stage down to, when you're in SAO stage and trying to convert someone at that revenue stage. I've had many people who have commented already on, reading early copies of the book that say, I'm taking a lot of this into what we're doing from a customer success perspective. Because content is the key to us building a relationship that sustains and ensures that when renewal time comes, we're thought of as a trusted advisor to this organization.
Right. And I think that speaks to the spirit of the podcast too of, we talk about it, especially when we're producing marketing materials, we're thinking about generating leads, nurturing leads, converting leads, maybe to the point of onboarding leads and that experience. And then the other side of the house is going to manage it from there because sales and marketing are joined at the hip and we do all this work together. And a lot of that is the content marketing, or at least, I'm going to walk it back just in the spirit of your book and in the spirit of how you teach all of this around content experience. It's, that's content production essentially. And most of that lives over in sales and marketing. The CS side of the house is, how do you make sure someone's successful? How do you double down on the successful people? How do you rescue the ones who are unsuccessful? And how do you, work them all to, advocacy and ultimately referrals and all these other things that we want out of happy, successful customers. And content is core to that whole experience. Again, something really interesting in looking at your background, Randy, in addition to co-founding the company, you started as chief operating officer. I'm changing speeds a little bit, but again, just to draw this line of handoffs from sales to marketing to CS, I assume that as chief operating officer, you oversaw a lot of that, or at least had purview into, how this works well. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in managing either? We have a lot of experiences going on here, and I want to get quickly to the live in-person experience of the conference you all are running too. But can you just spend a minute on how serving as a chief operating officer put you in a great position to transition to marketing and to see maybe customer experience and content experience differently?
Yeah, so early days, it was kind of by necessity that I took on more of a COO style role than a pure marketing. I am a marketer at heart. I grew up wanting to be a marketer. The fact that I not only get to be a CMO at this stage, but of a MarTech company that I was involved in starting is a dream come true. So I'm kind of living the dream as I just said there. But doing that COO gig where I had and still today have a few other parts of the organization report into me, definitely gives you an understanding of that entire buyer journey, right? Throughout different times in the business, I've had everything from sales through CS and as well as finance reporting to me. So you start to understand the cost, and you also start to understand, that everything we do in marketing is for nothing if the other pieces aren't working, right? I mean, one of our core values here at Uberflip really ties into the idea of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I am the last one to say that being an entrepreneur is about starting a business. It's about owning what's in front of you, right? Like that's what it's all about. And, there's one of the analogies I'll sometimes use is think of that car that's pulled over in the ditch. I'm in Toronto now where there's like way too much snow. So you see this happening a lot.
Sure.
And there's an exponential difference between when you go from 2 to 3 people trying to push that car versus 3 to 4, right? Like when you get one person on every wheel, that thing just moves, right? When you got 3 people, if you can't think of the car one because you're in a warm climate and your car never gets stuck, think of like moving that awkward dining room table, right? Where you got like 2 people on 2 corners and one person kind of like straddling the rest of the load. It just doesn't work. Right? You need all areas of the business operating together in unison. If one piece lets up, that car's not moving, that table's not moving, it falls, it breaks, right? And that's the viewpoint I got in that COO role is what's working well on our success side, what's working well on sales, marketing, and other parts of the business, of course, including product and whatnot. And what do we need to do to get everyone to communicate better? And to make sure, and I'll bring this back to the topic we have, that we're delivering a great customer experience, right? And every touch point feels the same. And I actually, I think it's the last chapter of the book, I talk about a time where we didn't have that down well, right? Like we're not perfect here. I think every company goes through that same. And there was a point we had this concept that we would use to explain what we did to customers. And we don't use it as much anymore. It was called the content experience wheel. So it was before we had a framework, and it was a lot less thought out. And part of it being less thought out is everyone had a different name for it, right? So customer success called it the Death Star, right? Like an evil killing machine.
Yeah. A lot of buy-in there. A lot of buy-in. Parts
of marketing, we're calling it the Connex wheel. I'll take credit. I had this idea that we should call it the helm, like, steering a ship. So all of a sudden you had all these visuals going through the company. And as a result, what would that mean for a customer, right? Like you hit on it, Ethan, is, eventually we want advocacy. What are our advocates going to go tell their the people they're going to refer that we are? Are we a wheel, a helm, or a Death Star? Right? It's just like, it's really scary. So we have to find ways to make sure that we have that same narrative, that same experience at the end of the day at every stage of the buyer journey.
And internally throughout the organization. Hey, before I get to the way we like to close this, Randy, talk a little bit about the live experience that your team is creating with Connex. Why the live experience? How does that serve the company or the community or, people thinking about how to implement content experience? Like why the live event, and where does that plug into the whole thing for you all?
Absolutely. So this will be the 4th year that we do Connex. Stands for Content Experience. It happens in Toronto towards the end of August. This year it's the 20th to the 22nd. We had 750 people last year. It's the 4th year, but in the 2nd year, we made a big strategic change on the conference. We dropped Uberflip from it, essentially.
Cool.
Right? So it used to be called the Uberflip experience. We dropped Uberflip. We removed product keynotes. We really made it about thought leadership and pulling together a movement of people who believe that creating content's not enough, that we have to use that content. So it's not just content marketers who come out to this thing. It's demand gen marketers. It's digital marketers. It's salespeople who are have a passion for, being better at how they communicate at the end of the day. And it's become, quite a movement as well. Last year was the first year that, I don't know if you know Jay Baer of Convince and Convert.
Yeah.
So partnered with Convince and Convert and Jay to ultimately take this event to the next level. And we really did that last year. This week, I'm actually securing all of our speakers for this year. It's a ton of fun. I always kid that it's that one time a year I get to feel like a general manager for like a sports team.
Right. My roster is even better than last year.
Exactly. You know, you want to sign everyone, but you know, you've got a cap that you got to work within. So it's a lot of fun, and you know, it's not your regular conference. And I know a lot of people say that, but you know, we do fun, silly things, but we also walk away with really transformative ideas and great networking sessions, including the first day, which is all workshop based. So it's a great opportunity. And, you know, I look forward to welcoming a lot of, you know, the people hopefully listening to this to Toronto. And if you want to get a taste of it, we're actually in the midst of a roadshow of 8 cities. Just wrapped up Atlanta. We've got Austin coming up, Boston, Chicago, Seattle, San Jose, Toronto, a few others along there.
Awesome. So roadshow any day across the continent, and Toronto in August sounds awesome.
It doesn't snow in August, right?
No, of course not. No, I grew up in Michigan. I wish it came with Canadian citizenship. And I've been to Toronto several times. It's a great city, even in the winter. You just got to have some patience.
Were you a Michigan State or U of M guy?
University of Michigan alumnus.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I went to the Big House once. It was fun.
Yeah, that is an experience in and of itself. And I recommend it to everyone, even if you are not a fan. Hey, because we're all about relationships here at BombBomb and on the Customer Experience Podcast, I like to give everyone a chance to mention or thank someone who's had a really positive experience on your life or on your career, and give a shout out to a company that's doing customer experience really well.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a fun one. So I will definitely thank my family. I mean, I can't not do there. But, you know, when you get into more of the workspace, you know, and shaping the ideas, I think it's the opportunity to interact with people. The podcast you're doing now is definitely amazing for the audience, but it helps you, right? So it's a lot of the guests. I run a weekly podcast. You know, I think we're over 200 episodes now. And, you know, just interacting with marketers on a day-to-day is so important. And I think it pushes us to remember that as marketers, as sales leaders, success leaders, we got to talk to our customers and we got to talk to people in the field. So I definitely thank people who just push me in that way. On the company that inspires me, I still am impressed with Slack. Like, you know, the experience that they deliver, you know, the consistency of their brand and narrative. I'm not crazy about the new logo, but
that's a whole episode in and of itself.
I know, but you know, they deliver a consistent customer experience, to your point. And, you know, their content, their help desk, their product, it all speaks in the same language. And I think that's something a lot of us should really, you know, reflect on.
That's great. I've received that answer to that question before. So they're obviously doing it right. Last thing, you know, you have a book, you have a company, you have a conference, you have a podcast. This is your chance to, if anyone enjoyed any aspect of this conversation and they want to take it further by connecting with you or the conference or the book or the company online, lay it all out. How could people find you? How can people take the next step on any of the stuff that we just covered?
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on.
I'm so excited for you all.
Thanks so much. The best place to go to interact with me these days, kind of as a central point, is my website. You can go to uberflip.com to learn about Uberflip, but if you want to learn more about me and get your hands on the book, go to b-rand.com. So that's like brand.com with a dash. Most of my friends actually call me Rand, not Randy. So we kind of have fun with the branding there, if you will. And if you go there, you can get an excerpt of the book. You can, you know, buy it on Amazon as of March 6th. And from there as well, you can, you know, see some of my favorite podcast episodes that we've got posted there. And, you know, some of the speaking that I do on a regular basis is posted there too.
Awesome. brand.com. Rand. I'm going to go ahead and elevate my relationship.
Good. We're buddies now. So I love it.
Thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed it. So much good stuff. And there were some shoots I wanted to run down, but I knew we just go too long, and I want to respect your time and that of the listeners. So thank you so much for your time, and hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks so much, Ethan.
Thank you. If you know someone who should be working on better content experience, not just content marketing, share this episode. And if you want more episodes like this, check out the Customer Experience Podcast. My name is Ethan Butte. I host the show, and it's available to you on iTunes. I would love for you to find it and even subscribe. Weekly conversations with sales, marketing, and customer success professionals about how to create, organize, manage, deliver, and optimize better experiences for their customers. You can learn more at bombbomb.com/podcast or by searching the Customer Experience Podcast in iTunes.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.